Civilized Society.
Welcome to Nietzsche Roulette, where the rain is pouring down outside, creating a perfect atmosphere for this game, which is sweeping the internet. Let me explain to you how the game is played. We generate a random number. We pick out an aphorism from Nietzsche's Human All Too Human, Book 1 is what we're working on now. And then we randomly discuss it, giving us no time to prepare, to think through. That's the game atmosphere of it. Would you like to say something out about this game, Salome
I love it.
Siboney?
That's right. I'm Salome Siboney. I am the co-host of this series, Nietzsche Roulette. Welcome to the podcast, beloved by millions and also unknown by millions. They just don't know they love it yet. But you do, and you're here. So let us begin with this episode of Nietzsche Roulette.
And we have already run into an amazing coincidence, which is that I generated the random number between 1 and 638, and we generated the number 393, which is actually already the number generated from our previous episode. This was unity of place and action. If married couples did not live together, good marriages would be more common. See our previous episode. What are the chances? I suppose the chances are 1 out of 638. Rolling
Clearly,
again.
God loves Nietzsche Roulette. That's why. It's synchronicity.
This random number generator is...
It's not random.
This is
I was
flawed.
going to
This
say
is
also,
Google.
like, that's insane that it was
This
the same number.
It just generated a 392. That's... do we reject that?
I mean, what is it, though? Like, did we just do it?
Okay. An element of love. In every kind of womanly love, there also appears something of motherly love. It's a little weird.
That's it?
That's it. I think executive decision. We roll again. I declare this random.
Why you want?
Because I used a different random number generator today instead of random.org, the sponsor of today's show.
Generator. Just read the fucking thing.
I am in
and
control
do
of
it.
this show.
No. You don't
Generated
get to-
323.
Why are you skipping it? We just had the aphorism. You just don't want to
Do whatever
interpret
I want.
it. I reject
Okay,
that.
if you want to talk about womanly
It's
love,
the
feel free.
fucking game show. That's what we do.
This one's better. In gratitude to be expected, which is your theme.
What? Do
Fine.
them both. Now we have to do them both because you read them both.
Damn it! I already forgot. Which one's the one? What are we doing? Pat Sajak, save me.
This is not.
Is Pat Sajak dead?
I don't know. I don't even know what he did. I'm not.
What about
50.
Alex? Pat Sajak is Wheel of Fortune. Alex
Trebek
Trebek he died.
cancer. I think that was what happened.
Alex
and people are
Trebek.
sad. Yeah. Cancer, or something.
Hold on.
Fatal.
Stand by. We have no commercial break. I know producer.
You wouldn't listen to the producer because I just told you exactly what to do and you rejected it, and now here we are doing nothing.
Well, we're this is called banter.
It's
392. Here it is again. Sorry. An element of love, in italics. In every kind of womanly love, there also appears something of motherly love.
Now I'm not
Go
in
ahead.
the mood to discuss love.
You wanted this, so there you go. Go for it.
Well, it's interesting, and it's spicy, and it makes you uncomfortable, so that makes me want to discuss it even more. Well, I think that it's true, obviously, because every person's existence comes from a woman. So even if your mom didn't love you, that's still your experience. And you're going to possibly end up experiencing that same lack of love again in whatever form of womanly love you pursue as an adult. Well, what if is Nietzsche talking about only men? Is this for only men? I'm going to assume it's for only men because that's probably how it is.
In every kind of womanly love, there also appears something of motherly love.
Yeah, let's just talk about heterosexual relationships because I don't want to complicate my life. Like, if someone wants to give us the non-binary take on this, then put it in the comments, but I ain't gonna do it. I think it's true because I think that there's the idea of attachment theory, which states that all your romantic relationships stem originally from your first loving relationship, which is that you have with your parents as a child. So that's kind of the model of your relationships later on. And so it follows that there would be a motherly element in love from a woman. And it could be bad or good. I think it can be bad. I think that if we look at a lot of the problems that we have now with like social justice, fanaticism and whatever, that this is a way that you can also understand the motherly aspect to feminine love or whatever, which is that there is this protector side also. And I see that a lot with people that, you know, highly identify with that social justice role. They have this kind of view that they're a savior and that everyone that they're saving is pretty helpless, you know, to the point that they need to be protected from words in song lyrics, etc. And so I think that the fact that that's an overprotection also has a mirroring quality to it from a kind of overprotective motherly love. Like there's almost like this shadow of motherly love in all its different forms behind like feminine love. You know what I mean?
There's
Do you
just
understand?
so many mom jokes that it overwhelmed me. Like it literally, it stunned me. It overwhelmed me when I read this because I was like, this is the culmination of my life has led up to this moment in terms of mom jokes, but I will not do it.
Don't
So,
do it.
I mean, there's just a lot of offensive things I could say right now, and I'm not sure which one to pick. Friedrich
Why
Nietzsche, he had some issues with the ladies, as we've also said before in the past. I think that he makes this distinction because he also studied Greek a lot, and he understands that the Greeks had different forms of love. And I think that he probably would have said some forms of love are not even available to women. So there's that. So in other words, like like a Greek conception of love that is friendship, I'm not sure that he would
Well, that's a little
say,
bit rough.
at least within that tradition in the past, that that's even available to women. And I'm just going to take some controversial takes here in Nietzsche Roulette for fun. It's all just for fun. Don't be getting upset out there. I have noticed a difference between friendly relationships between women and between men. I would hate to be a woman, so I'll leave that. I was going to continue, but actually I'll just put a period at the end of that first, then continue. I would hate to be a woman also, though, because I think friendships between women are more complicated than friendships between men. And I'm not talking about gay stuff here also, by the way. I'm talking about just straight up, like, this is just...
I didn't think so. I agree with all of that. So it can't be as contentious as it could have been if I disagreed. But yeah, I think that there's the flip side to that is that, yeah, I think relationships between women can be more complicated, but it's because women are more complicated in some ways. And I too agree that I would hate to be a woman, and I sometimes do. It's an unpleasant experience, you know, and it's not because of like, oh, sexism. It's just like annoying. Women have different existences. I think they're, you know, the research that's on women's psychology, it's like we're not having a great time a lot. You know, it's like prone to negative emotion and prone to, you know, whatever, like more extreme emotion or whatever. And so I experienced that. And I think that's part of what makes women's relationships with each other more complicated, is that they're more, well, at the same time, they're more willing to be closer and supportive and can form deeper relationships in a way because of that, because they can get closer to each other in many ways, you know, like they're more open emotionally, verbally, like communicating. But at the same time,
There's a problem with this, again, to be controversial. Even if that's true, which it could be, the problem is the way that women sort out problems in their friendships and men do, especially when men were more man-like. I punched a lot of my friends before, and I've been punched in the face, and it's fine. It all worked out fine. And then that just solved it more or less. That was that. Women tend, and again,
we're giving out some scalding takes today.
tend to, I think, in general, besides all the women swimmers and the women skateboarders, and totally, that's real, they tend to do battle with one another in different ways. And they do that through destroying one another's reputation. Now, the problem is, because if it's true that women can form closer, more intimate friendship bonds, that also runs the risk of then when the knives come out to destroy one another, you actually can probably harm each other more.
Well, that all makes sense.
This is just speculation.
I think that I tend to, when I see that something has a high positive and a high negative, that makes sense to me, because then in a way it kind of balances out, and that means it can exist for longer. Because if something just has a high negative, I feel like it ends up either self-destructing or somehow getting ended. And there's no thing that just has a high positive that just exists with no counterweight to it. You know, like love. Oh, it's so great, high positive, you know, very highly positive experience. Well, it comes with a really highly negative experience, which is the potential loss. So I see that in this example too, where women can have really close relationships, but at the same time, it's those relationships that end up getting weaponized, and the closeness that ends up being weaponized if there is a problem between women and their relationships. And this is actually a huge, by the way, all of this is not conjecture. This is not theory. This was very commonly understood and accepted as, you know, basic psychological sex differences just about a decade ago. There's a really famous book on it that outlines all of these kind of passive-aggressive forms of battle that women do with each other. And it's called, I can't remember, it's like something girl. I can't remember now. But it was a really famous book, and it's a lot of research in it about exactly what you're talking about. And what I think is interesting is to see that idea of reputational attack as a primarily feminine form of violence, if you will, or whatever. That's what cancel culture is. That's what all this shit about, like, oh, I dug up your tweets and you were a bad person 10 years ago and I'm going to run you through the public square and show everyone how bad you are. That's reputational attack. It's a weird thing because it's meeting the culture at a time when your reputation is very public and very tangible in a way because it's online. You know, your reputation can quite literally be manifested in a visible way. You know, you look up my Instagram, that's in a way my reputation. That's how you can judge who I am. It's not a great way to do that because you don't know me, but it is still a facet of reputation. And so in this time when reputation is so visible and so tangible in the digital sphere, we also have this highly feminine form of attack, which is reputational attack. So let's bring this back to Nietzsche. So I would say, yes, I was going to make the same point you did, which is, yeah, there probably are some forms of love that are not accessible to women, but I would say the same for men. You know, I don't think men are never going to know what it's like to a mother's love, you know, to be a mother to a child. It's not something a man can know. And equally, women cannot know that kind of like rapport between men, that kind of relationship. That's very unique. And I think that's fucking fine. I think that there's probably a problem in our culture. You know, we in a way want to be able to do everything and want to have access to everything in some very selfish, strange way. Well, you're not.
I don't want access to feeling like a woman. I never have, and I never will.
Well, you can now if you want it. So.
Well, that's
apparently
very
it's the
debatable.
hot new thing. No, it's kind of just a thing for like failing men to then usurp their competitors in the women's sphere. I mean, like that's all it is with sports. It's almost all of that. Like there's going to be a few cases of people that are actually like legitimately trans people, and I guess they still want to compete in women's sports.
Let's leave the trans out of this one for the love of God. I just want to stop talking about trans people. It's enough. It's 2020. It's boring. But anyway, back to, because I think we are. It's just enough.
It is enough.
Also, no one gives a fuck about women skateboarding anyway. So whatever.
Well, the women do, man. That's the problem.
Like yeah,
let them fucking
like 10
have a thing.
That do it.
That's the sadder part. You know, it's like a 10-year-old girl that wants to win a skateboarding competition. It's like a 50-year-old man being like, I'm battling in this arena now. It's like, what the fuck is going on?
It's I almost absurd. That one. I almost was like, this is so funny that
it's
I
like
just
a
okay.
South Park
go
episode
for it.
or something. Yeah, right.
Absurd. Anyway, so maybe to put we can talk one more thing about this, which is to say that if men stop being involved in man love, then I can't. That's too much. That's why I tried. That's why I tried to move away from it. There's too many jokes. Okay, so as men become more feminine, which I think is true.
I can attest to that. It's hard out here on both sides.
They're gonna start exercising womanly love as opposed to man love more and more, which I think you got to at the beginning of this, which then, according to Nietzsche, seems like motherly love, which is this kind of more protector type thing, which protects everything and is sensitive to maybe insult or offense. Mm-hmm. I think that is a culture and a civilization that will inevitably be conquered by either an outside enemy or its own insecurity.
This is
probably the latter.
Dude, this is so, I want to be so offensive right now. I want to go so far with this because look, how do I do this? How do I parch this in a tactful way?
Well, here, let's just take a moment. So we can't edit this out if we want to, in case we break terms of service. So see you later, Nietzsche Roulette, possibly. Now go ahead, and then we'll put this on like Rumble or BitChute or something if we have to.
Somewhere where we can speak freely. Look, the thing is, it's weird because you called to mind this idea for me when you said that civilization where, in a way, both women and men are possessed by this negative kind of femininity, right? Like for women, it's backwards also right now, but we won't go there. But for men, also adopting this kind of like feminine nature that. And this is not to say that there's not a place for balance, right? There is a place for balance for men to appreciate, you know, feminine qualities and cultivate that to a certain degree. But then there's the negative side of that, which just becomes this kind of neuroticism. That's ultimately what it is. It's you adopt the negative feminine. And that is this kind of like overly sensitive and overly vicious kind of existence. And then you say, oh, this kind of a civilization will be conquered. Well, it makes me think of like tribal past, you know, where that is exactly what would happen with warring tribes. You would conquer the tribe and you would take all the women, but you didn't have a tribe of just women. So if there are no men to defend that tribe, it does get conquered. it would have already been conquered, is what it is. I mean, there's no historical precedent for that. I mean, I'm sure there was some, novelty of matriarchal societies or whatever, but we are not that. So we would simply be a manless civilization, which absolutely would fall. Do you see where I'm going with this?
The Chinese? No, I don't know.
That's where we're going.
Exactly.
But you understand? Okay, so it's like...
I understand.
Oh,
I understand
okay.
how warfare used to work. You would
exactly.
you would kill all the men, and then you would take the women and make them different types of things depending on
we
what
don't
you
need to
wanted
get
to do
into
with them.
the
That's just
details.
history. Sorry. That's how that worked. Not all the time, and it really didn't work that way all the time. But that is part of life.
But this is what I say. If you have this society where there's like, it's supposed to be patriarchal, like the role initially was, it was a patriarchal society. And then it becomes kind of like neither, because it's not a positive feminine role that women hold now. I think I was just thinking the other day how I think a lot of women suffer in this kind of feminist environment now. I don't think it's actually good for women. I think it's just really confusing. And I think late feminism actually disdains women. And I think you can see that to a degree with the demands that women start referring to themselves in really demeaning ways, like uterus holder, etc. I mean, it's cannibalized itself as a movement. But either way, the women aren't doing well, and then the men aren't free to be men in a healthy way.
So I clarify a couple things. This isn't particularly controversial. We're just taking a lot of different things and putting it in one episode. But the reason I said the Chinese thing, by the way, is because there's actually a huge gender difference in China right now because of state-run abortion in the Communist Party, and because, hey, here's a secret to you, the Chinese culture actually preferred male children, and so when they aborted their children because they could only have one, they would abort the female children. So now you have this big... in this generation coming up, I think it's 186 million surplus men.
That's insane.
That's potentially going to cause problems that most people don't understand. But let's put that aside for a second.
I literally just got chills in a very weird way, thinking of how destructive the implications of that could be, because it could be beyond their own border.
Well, no, it would be if everything in history tells us what it will be. But anyway, now here's the thing I can say that may change this. And I'm not saying it will change any of it for good or bad. I don't take really a lot of stances on it's good or bad. Here's the thing, though. You can press a button on a Predator drone just as easily as I can. So in terms of, if we're going back to this idea of warfare and stuff, it's not the same as what you can't do, I would guarantee you, is I can line up in a Greek phalanx better and push someone with a shield probably better than you can. But you, now in this world of technology, can just as easily launch a drone to kill your enemy if you were in the military. I'm talking about if you were in the military, not if you were in some sort of other thing. So technology, to a degree, has actually equaled out the only difference, which always mattered, which was the difference between physical strength on average between men and women, right?
There's a societal difference, though, because assuming this is a society where people have relationships and have children, there's usually there's who stays with the kids, who runs the society. Like, does everybody go to war?
Those are different questions. I mean, this is more in terms of the actual war thing. The battle
that's going on here. Is the battle on our soil? What's going on here?
Well, I'm no military expert, but
because you can't have both parents go to war. I mean, I guess you could. Like back in the day, you did. I guess, right? Like, because
this isn't a world anymore in terms of mass mobilization of forces. We're not ever going to go back to. I hope this isn't taken someday and like you were wrong. We're not probably ever going to go back to mass mobilization of infantry forces on a large scale. So I don't know that that matters that much. With
Well,
the
it can
technology we have
do
and the
work from
destructive
home.
power of the things we have, we don't really need that.
Is it
Now,
like
the Russian-Ukrainian thing is
Let
actually...
me make my joke. God damn
Oh,
it.
sorry. I couldn't hear you.
Is it work from home war?
I mean,
Do I get to
my
wear my
understanding...
sweatpants while I send drones
Well,
off?
I mean, that's how, not from home, I don't think, but you know, the drone operators actually, these are people who just, they work in a warehouse somewhere or on a computer terminal. Like,
So weird.
it's how it works. They're not usually on the battlefield, I don't think. I'm no drone expert. Anyway, the point is that, you know, we're kind of looking at the implications of these gender differences or lack of differences in a more primitive world, you know, and I'm not sure that that's going to play out the same way in this world. Now, I still think that huge gender difference in China is going to have, I don't know how it's going to work out, but I do agree with and believe, and I think everyone, regardless of political persuasion, should understand that young men tend to be, if not properly organized in a society and kept within certain strictures, I mean, they can be a big problem for everybody. I mean, like, it's just true. Like, you don't see a lot of, like, 18-year-old women terrorists or, like, 18-year-old... I mean, to be fair, it really... And again, another gender difference. Do you see a lot of mass shooters that are 18-year-old women?
Yeah.
You don't. So there is a difference. And when that's...
This is a big thing that I've thought about because when I watched that documentary that we did an episode on, Jihad Rehab, I saw a lot of parallels to the kind of incel mass shooter archetype that we have in the West. But it was Middle Eastern Islamic terrorism. It's kind of this, in a way, there's not all of them, obviously. There's people come to this for different reasons. But it's younger men that don't have families, men that don't necessarily have direction, and men that may also be seeking a kind of thrill and excitement and a kind of pseudo purpose in a way. And so you had like some examples of men that were just straight up, you know, like this is fun, or like I have nothing else to do. And then as soon as some of them had a wife or a child, they were much more, you know, just civilized and focused on that. So this is, you know, it's like we're discovering basic biology and human existence all over again. But yeah, it's definitely a pattern.
Well, I think this has been an extraordinarily successful episode of Nietzsche Roulette. We tend to range wildly. We do what we want here, just like Friedrich Nietzsche did, and we say things that may or may not please our audience.
But we're not here to please our audience. That's the thing.
Clearly.
That's what our clearly. But that's not what our audience wants. The Silver Eye Society viewers and supporters, they don't come here just to, you know, have their egos stroked or their worldviews reinforced. On the contrary, what I think so many people, and especially Silver Eye Society viewers, appreciate is hearing people's honest understandings of the world, because that's actually interesting. It's interesting to watch people be authentic and think about things honestly and openly. And it's rare. It's increasingly rare, especially when you can do it the way we do it. We tie in all these different things and Nietzsche. So, you know, interesting quote by Nietzsche to think about in all the multiple ways that we have. So, if you enjoy this episode of Nietzsche Roulette, if you didn't enjoy this episode of Nietzsche Roulette, tune into the next one, because it may be better or maybe even worse. So that's interesting too. But tune in anyway, because it'll be interesting.